reason much inferior. So the book may be... Do you know who was largely responsible for creating scientific racism in the United States? For several centuries, the U.S. spread bogus theories of black inferiority, supposedly backed by science, attempting to rationalize slavery and centuries of oppression. In 1787, more than a decade after helping to write the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson published Notes on the State of Virginia, a pseudo-scientific study of his state's geography, climate, religion, and enslaved population. So let's read some of what Jefferson had to write about black people, and I've got to read this. Quote, "In general, their existence appears to participate more of sensation than reflection." Interesting, coming from a person whose fancy boy life of leisure was built totally on the backs of the enslaved. He goes on, quote, "In imagination they are dull and tasteless. This unfortunate difference of color and perhaps of faculty is a powerful obstacle to the emancipation of these people." Jefferson goes on, quote, "The differences fixed in nature are not the fine mixtures of red and white, the expressions of every passion by greater or less suffusions of color in the one, white people, preferable to that eternal monotony which reigns in the countenances, that immovable veil of black which covers all the emotions of the other race." So he's basically arguing that black people are inherently inferior and they can't be trusted because we can't tell when they're blushing. Yes, Jefferson was taken seriously when he wrote this. He goes on to say, quote, "They secrete less by the kidneys and more by the glands of the skin, which gives them a very strong and disagreeable odor. This greater degree of transpiration renders them more tolerant of heat." Translation, black people can tolerate the heat of the plantation because they sweat adequately, but they sure do stink while doing so. Jefferson also describes black people's, quote, "disposition to sleep when unemployed in labor, an animal whose body is at rest. Comparing them by their faculties of memory, reason, and imagination, it appears to me, Jefferson, that in memory they are equal to the whites, in reason much inferior." So the book made clear that when Jefferson wrote that, quote, "all men are created equal," he wasn't really talking about black people. And this book marked the beginning of white people's quest to use science to prove their superiority, and some have never stopped. This has led to many pseudoscientific things like eugenics or craniometry or phrenology or IQs, all in an attempt to prove white superiority. Recent examples would be the bell curve or Roseanne Barr's tweets comparing Valerie Jarrett to an ape, or even in many comments here on TikTok. Indeed, Adolf Hitler studied the U.S. and how it distorted science to rationalize oppression. And scientific racism was socially acceptable beginning in the 18th century all the way through the World War II era, when it took the Holocaust to show the world the logical and inevitable endpoint of scientific racism. That's it. Have a good day. Hope that helps.
Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Harakah Kadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of GMS. Peace, love, and salutations to the Bayaf Dawadah, the house of David. I'm your brother Zion out of GMS Boston. Once again, here on my channel, Lord willing, through the Spirit. You know, this is edifying. Alright. So it's two things that stand out to me in watching this video. The first, in being so, I'm gonna bring it out in the book of Psalms, 64 verse 8. "So they shall make their own tongue fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away." All right. And what does it mean? They're gonna make their own tongues fall upon themselves. Is that basically Esau was gonna have snitches. All right, people that was going to be of the nation of Esau was going to expose some of their lies, some of their treachery, some of their plots, their plans. You had guys like Aaron Russell, John Tall, Maxwell. These were just a few insiders, elites, you know, people who were friends of insiders or friends of the elites, people that have advanced information that were once involved. Okay, and even just regular citizens that, you know, do their due diligence and research certain things. Okay, so this is one thing that stuck out to me. And another thing was just the lies of Esau and tearing down the strongholds, which is a part of our job. Our job is to do what? To tear down the strongholds, right? So here you have Thomas Jefferson, which is a so-called founding father, you know, and he said it. All men are created equally, but then again, he wrote in his book this, and we know which is more important than what he wrote, what was actually happening around that time, okay? Around that time is, you know, full-fledged slavery, okay? Slavery was in full effect. Okay, Habakkuk chapter 2. I'll start here. It says, this is Habakkuk, the second chapter. It says, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and thou hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. All right. Basically, if these walls can talk, okay. Esau has consulted shame to that house by cutting off many people, and he sinned against his own soul. All right. And he made it hard. All right, for people in particular, and as we go more and more into the future, for people to look themselves in the mirror and be proud. All right. So-called proud that they're white, proud that they're Edomites, proud of their founding fathers. The scriptures say, that they were basically going to curse out their fathers, all right, because of their iniquities. All right, so they brought shame, and then you're seeing the backlash of that is, it was this one incident where these people were putting notes on cars saying basically it's okay to be white. All right, stop white guilt. All right, white guilt is bad, and really the advance toward what they would call liberalism. Conservatives against liberalism, and liberals basically feeling bad, ones that are sincere, because the scriptures say, hey, the children shall seek to please the poor. So you are going to have so-called Edomites that are going to seek to please the poor by doing certain things, donating certain things, giving things, all right, to blacks. Okay, some won't be sincere, some will be, because that prophecy will need to be fulfilled. But nevertheless, that vibration of white guilt and it's okay to be white is there as a counter to what? This scripture right here. All right. This scripture right here. All right. I'll read it again. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people. Thou hast sinned against thy soul. All right. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe unto him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. And how was America established? How was it built? It was built off of blood. The blood, all right, of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the Israelites, so-called blacks, all right, so-called Haitians, so-called Jamaicans that were brought over here to the Western Hemisphere, all right, and other tribes that had their indigenous people that was native to this land that got their land taken over by the conquistadors, by the settlers, by the colonists, by Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. All right, so this is how America was established. Iniquity goes back to sin. Sin being what? Rape, murder, theft, usury, bribe, removing landmarks, things of that nature. We can go on and on, but let's continue on with the scripture. Behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and that the people shall weary themselves in very vanity. So the basically you reap what you sow. All right, you reap what you sow. Woe unto him for the Aslakia, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, knowledge of glory of the Lord, and the waters covereth the sea. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle into him, and maketh him drunken, that thou mayest look upon a nakedness. Now, what Thomas Jefferson and what Esau did through science was he made the world to believe that so-called blacks were inferior, all right, worthless as animals. In fact, 3/5 of a man, all right, to justify the brutal acts of slavery, all right, that they put on us, okay. And in this, they made their own people drunk. Out of this movement, as you see, you got things like Margaret Sanger, eugenics, Hitler, all right, and some of the Nazis during these trials were basically blaming America because they was following after the mantra that America had set in eugenics. All right, going back to Darwinism, Planned Parenthoods, all right, basically modeling, all right, Nazi Germany after doctrine that they've been taught. And it goes back to Thomas Jefferson, the so-called founding fathers, Andrew Jackson, who defied his own a law, basically, the defied orders, all right, the wage war on Reuben, all all right, the Gadites and other Gadites, all right, and particularly what you known as Florida, that region of Georgia, okay, the Trail of Tears, all right. This is the shame that they got to live with because they haven't paid for their iniquities, okay. That shame is always going to be upon them as long as there's no justice being delivered for the blood that was shed, okay. And they gave, and now when you deal with Thomas Jefferson, there was a comment that was left underneath that video, which was a very good point. It said not to mention the fact that Thomas Jefferson had a bunch of kids, all right, by these very same slaves, by these very same savages, by these very same nobodies, all right. And basically, the statement meaning that he basically fathered what's called deadbeat. You know, so the deadbeat dad, the original deadbeat dad, you know, you can link that to what these guys was doing. And now to this day, when you have a spirit, when you have that spirit of, when you have that spirit of deadbeat dads, and not just that, but in slavery, when you had Esau who was separating children, you know, Esau will come and sell your child at the drop of a dime. So as a father, you had to have a defense mechanism away from things that Nate build yourself up for your child not to be taken away from you, and it hardened you. And those effects of slavery, of having your children taken away, the psychological damage is still in place today because it still hasn't been fixed. All right. But it says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and puttest thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken, that he may look upon a nakedness. Thou filled with shame for glory, drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee. Shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. So Thomas Jefferson, who's a so-called founding father, who quoted, all men are created equally, is clearly a lying devil. He didn't believe this, that all men were created equally. He was clearly a double-minded man. Scripture said double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. He's a liar. He's a serpent. He's a snake. Andrew Jackson, George Washington, who all participated in evil rituals. All right, the brutal enslavement of the Lord's people. This is shameful spurns on their glory. People that they glorify, they esteemed as high. All right. Now it's our job to do what? To basically let them be uncovered. And that's what they are, being uncovered. Let me see what I got here. Stock it. So yeah, man, just a quick video on that. Quick lesson on that one. Shalom.